watching All 24 News World News Program, and up next are tonight's top stories. Iran faces second week of heavy bombing as Tehran strikes US and Zionist bases. Donald Trump warns of strong strike while the UK officially joins the war. Also in our news tonight, Iran launches the 25th wave of Operation True Promise 4. President Masoud Pezeshkian says neighbors won't be targeted unless attacks come from their soil. And explosions are reported in the UAE and Bahrain. In Lebanon, dozens are killed and others wounded in intense Zionist strikes. A massacre reported in Nabishit, and the Lebanese army confirms 3 soldiers killed. Meanwhile, markets react. Oil prices surge. Kuwait cuts output. Qatar warns of soaring energy prices, and global companies evacuate staff from the region. Welcome back. First off in our news tonight, US and Zionist airstrikes continue hitting Iran for the second week. Iranian state TV says a girls' high school in Saqqez was struck, while explosions were also reported on Kish Island, and fresh blasts rocked the capital, Tehran. Iran's military says its air defenses shot down 2 orbiter 4 drones over Isfahan and Hermes 900 off the coast of Hormuzgan. Meanwhile, the Iranian Red Crescent says the toll continues to rise. More than 1,300 people killed and thousands wounded, with thousands of civilian sites reportedly hit, including schools and medical centers. In Iran, Iran's military launched a large-scale strike on U.S. bases in the Middle East and targets in the occupied Palestinian territories. On Saturday, naval forces hit U.S. bases in Abu Dhabi and Kuwait's Al Udeiri base with drones, while a drone barrage struck the occupation's Dut Misha observation post in the occupied Palestinian territories, according to the military. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump warned Iran on Saturday of a powerful strike as Washington ramps up its military presence in the Middle East. Trump said new targets could be added to the ongoing attacks. Fox News reported that the U.S. is sending a 3rd aircraft carrier to the region, with USS George H.W. Bush ready to sail to the eastern Mediterranean.
And we're doing very well in Iran. You see the result, and it's been amazing. We've knocked out 42 Navy ships, some of them very large, in 3 days. That was the end of the Navy. We knocked out their Air Force. We knocked out their communications, and all telecommunications is gone.
At the same time, U.S. President Donald Trump says American military operations against Iran are going very well. Speaking at the Shield of the Americas Summit in Florida, Trump claimed U.S. forces destroyed 42 Iranian naval vessels in just 3 days and severely weakened Tehran's military capabilities. He also said Iran's communications networks have been knocked out amid the ongoing strikes. Trump linked the campaign to concerns over Iran's nuclear program, saying the operation is aimed at preventing Tehran from acquiring a nuclear weapon and protecting global security.
Iran has apologized and surrendered to its Middle East neighbors and promised that it will not shoot at them anymore. Today, Iran will be hit very hard under serious consideration for complete destruction and certain death.
For its part, Iran announced Saturday that it launched new attacks on the heart of the occupation in U.S. military targets in the region. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said this was the 25th wave of Operation True Promise 4, with Fatah and Ahmad precision missiles hitting their targets deep inside the occupation, including U.S. Zionist military centers and support facilities. Politically, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said Saturday that the Interim Leadership Council has agreed not to strike neighboring countries unless provoked. In a televised address, he added that Tehran will cooperate with neighbors to maintain security, stressing that Iranians will resist to the last moment to overcome the crisis.
I have to apologize here to the neighboring countries that were attacked by Iran during the process we have gone through. Our leaders and loved ones lost their lives in the brutal aggression. Our armed forces and the heroes have risked their lives to defend the territorial integrity of our country. We will not attack neighboring countries.
Echoing that position, Iran's military spokesperson confirmed that forces will honor the Interim Council's decision. No strikes on neighboring countries that aren't used to attack Iran. The military added that operations against the occupation in the U.S. will continue while exempting nations that do not allow their territory or airspace to be used against Iranian targets.
We are waiting for them. We advised the Americans before making any decision to remember the fire that targeted the giant American oil tanker Bridgeton in 1987 and the oil tankers that were targeted recently.
For its part, Saudi Arabia's defense ministry said Saturday it intercepted missiles and drones targeting U.S. forces and key oil infrastructure. Spokesperson Major General Turk al-Maliki reported 15 drones destroyed over the empty quarter en route to the Shaiba oil field, along with 6 more drones, 2 east of Riyadh, and 3 ballistic missiles aimed at Prince Sultan Air Base in Al-Harj. Elsewhere in the Gulf, missile and drone attacks targeted military bases in the UAE, Bahrain, and Qatar. Authorities in the United Arab Emirates say air defenses intercepted Iranian strikes with debris falling in Dubai. Sirens also sounded in Manama and Doha as air defenses responded to incoming threats. Meanwhile, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps says its drones struck a Dhafra airbase in the UAE, targeting communications and radar systems it says were used to launch earlier airstrikes on Iran. Jordan, too, says it has been targeted. Jordan accused Iran Saturday of targeting its vital infrastructure, saying Tehran's 119 missiles and drones were deliberate, not indiscriminate. General Mustafa al-Hayari, Jordanian military media director, said the Air Force intercepted 108 missiles and drones, adding the attacks were aimed at specific Jordanian sites and facilities.
خلال أسبوع استهدفت إيران أراضي المملكة الأردنية الهاشمية.
Within a week, Iran targeted the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan with 119 missiles and drones, including 60 missiles and 59 drones. To be clear, the 60 missiles and 59 drones were directed at purely Jordanian targets. This means they were not transit missiles, as some might think.
أردنية بحتة، بمعنى أنها لم تكن صواريخ عبور كما يظن البعض.
At sea, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps said Saturday it targeted 2 oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz after they ignored warnings. A statement on Sepah news agency confirmed strikes on the Marshall Islands flag tanker Lois and the tanker Prima, which was hit by a suicide drone after disregarding repeated Iranian Navy warnings. In response, the United States says it will provide military escorts for ships crossing the Strait of Hormuz, in a move officials say will help stabilize global oil flows. Energy Secretary Chris Wright says Navy is preparing to protect commercial vessels, while Interior Secretary Doug Burgum argues the step will calm energy markets. But Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps warns of dire consequences if the United States forces escort tankers through this strategic waterway. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal reports Washington has secured $20 billion in insurance coverage for ships in the strait. Amid the escalation, major cities in Europe and the United States saw large protests demanding an end to the Middle East war on Saturday. In New York, thousands called for a halt to the conflict and condemned U.S. policies. Paris saw demonstrators denouncing escalation and urging peace with Iran. In London, marches from Westminster to the US Embassy raised banners against American policies and the arming of the Zionist entity.
I'm very angry. I want to shout. I want to say stop. And that stop hasn't come yet. This is a horrible war machine. The children have not done anything. The school children have not done anything. The hospitals, they're attacking everything. That's unacceptable.
Les hôpitaux, ils attaquent tout. C'est pas possible. Je suis extrêmement inquiète.
I'm extremely worried because I saw what happened in Iraq with more than 1 million deaths after the fall of Saddam. I saw that the Americans were present in Afghanistan for 20 years and have delivered the country to the Taliban. I saw what's happening in Syria, in Libya, so I don't want any of that to happen again in Iran. I think this war is delaying and is an obstacle for the fight for freedom and independence of my country.
Meanwhile, in Lebanon, the Ministry of Health reported Saturday that occupation airstrikes since Monday have killed 294 and wounded 1,023. The eastern Bekaa Valley strikes on Nabi Sheet and surrounding towns left 41 dead and around 40 wounded, including 4 children and a woman. Bombing in Balabak killed 6, while Nabatia Governorate saw 5 martyrs. The Lebanese army said 3 soldiers were killed during the Zionist attempt to infiltrate Nabi Sheet, involving helicopter landings, shelling, and clashes with locals.
Yesterday, after the Israeli army warned this town, among other towns, we transferred the children. When the troops come on the ground had advanced, immediately there was a clash between them and us. The clash continued for about an hour.
And as the humanitarian crisis deepens due to the latest Zionist bombings in Lebanon, during Ramadan, volunteers in Beirut are mobilizing to help displaced families, preparing hundreds of hot meals daily. Yasin has more.
Amid escalating Zionist airstrikes on Lebanon, communities across the country are mobilizing in a powerful show of solidarity to support thousands displaced by the bombardment. In several cities, volunteers have stepped forward to prepare and distribute food to families forced to flee their homes. At the center of these efforts is Nation Station, a grassroots initiative launched after the Beirut port explosion in 2020. Since then, it has provided daily meals and emergency aid to vulnerable communities.
These are the preparations for iftar for around 850 people. The number is increasing every day, especially after the recent events and the displacement of people from southern Lebanon. People who are familiar with what we do support us either through donations or by providing food. Thanks to the help, we are able to gather the ingredients we need and continue preparing meals for those who need them.
Inside a makeshift kitchen, Lebanese volunteers work alongside foreigners, cooking large quantities of rice, vegetables and other staples. The ingredients come almost entirely through donations, reflecting a strong spirit of community support. The meals are then distributed to temporary shelters, schools and reception centers hosting displaced families. Despite the fragile security situation and the threat of further strikes, many citizens continue to mobilize, determined to support those affected.
You know, these days are very intense days, and going here, staying here, and cooking for the people that are displaced makes me feel like at least I'm trying to give a contribution to this tough moment.
For many Lebanese, these efforts reflect more than humanitarian assistance. They symbolize the resilience and steadfastness of a population long accustomed to hardship and repeated confrontations with Zionist aggressions, yet determined to stand together and endure even the most difficult moments.
The regional conflict is also rattling global supply chains as fighting disrupts shipping lanes and airspace across the Middle East. Karim Mustafa reports this time.
The UN agencies are sounding the alarm over the growing humanitarian impact of the latest escalation in the Middle East following the US Zionist attacks on Iran. Beyond the bloodshed, destruction and chaos, the ongoing war is now disrupting key supply routes, delaying the delivery of vital aid to regions already facing severe crises.
This situation could do is definitely increase the risk of hunger worldwide. This is what we saw when global markets were disrupted in 2022, when global markets were disrupted in 2007, 2008. This is what happened when global supply chains broke down during the COVID pandemic. Let's watch out.
Several experts warn that the situation could deteriorate significantly as goods continue to pile up.
The Middle East is a major hub for the world in terms of shipments, so this has ripple effect in every region. For example, we have a humanitarian logistic hub in Dubai, which is one of our main hubs, and in this hub, we have prepositioned goods for humanitarian aid, as I said before, what we call non-food item, blanket, tarpaulins, water purification system, and all that stock in Dubai is currently not moving.
The repercussions of the ongoing escalation extend far beyond the Middle East. Aid agencies say the countries such as Sudan and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, already grappling with a violent conflict, could see the risk of famine worsen if humanitarian supplies are delayed.
We are particularly concerned about Africa, where a region where there are many humanitarian emergencies, such as Sudan or the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Sudan is approaching very shortly the 3-year mark of this terrible crisis, the largest displacement crisis in Africa. And of course, crises that are already extremely neglected and lacking immediate funding. And so this could be further exacerbated.
With the escalation in the Middle East showing no sign of easing, the consequences could be felt by millions of people whose survival depends on international aid.
The energy sector is already feeling the pressure. Kuwait is cutting crude production and refining, a precautionary move following the Iranian attacks. The Kuwait Petroleum Corporation says it's part of its risk management strategy. The statement stresses local market needs are fully secured, and officials say they're ready to return to normal levels as soon as conditions allow. For his part, Qatari Energy Minister Saad Al-Kaabi warned oil could hit $150 a barrel and gas at $40 per million BTU if the Middle East war continues. In an interview with the Financial Times, he said ongoing hostilities could force Gulf producers to declare force majeure in the coming days.
The continuation of the war will have negative repercussions on the global economy. Rising energy prices and shortages of some basic products could disrupt supply chains and industrial operations around the world. Restoring supplies to normal levels could take weeks or even months, even after the fighting stops. We expect that countries which have not declared force majeure may be forced to take this step within the next few days if the situation continues as it is. Energy exporters across the Gulf region could face similar measures, and even if the conflict were to end immediately, bringing supplies back to normal levels would still take a significant amount of time.
Markets are reacting sharply. Crude oil prices just posted their biggest week gains since futures trading began in 1983. US crude jumped nearly 36% this week, the largest increase in modern history. Brent crude rose about 28%, all driven by the escalating war in the Middle East. Moving on to the war in Gaza, a Palestinian man was killed and a child injured when occupation forces bombed a house in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza Strip, according to the Palestinian news agency. Zionist occupation forces also carried out widespread home demolitions and artillery shelling in eastern Khan Yunis and areas east of Gaza City. Amid the devastation, displaced families in Gaza are still trying to observe Ramadan, breaking a modest iftar among the ruins. Zafar Jani reports now.
As the sun sets on another day of fasting in Gaza, this displaced woman struggles to prepare her iftar meal beside the ruins of a destroyed mosque that once served as a refuge for her family after they were forced to flee their home in Jabalia in northern Gaza during the Zionist genocide. The 10-member family now lives in a tent next to the destroyed mosque.
This Ramadan is better than last year thanks to the ceasefire, but people are still struggling to survive because they have no income. For example, I used to work as a taxi driver and earn a living, but today I have no money and no source of income. I look at the goods in the market and I can't afford to buy them. I receive rice every 2 days and my children are suffering from malnutrition. They are sick because of the lack of healthy food. They need strength. Their immune systems are weakened.
Thanks to the ceasefire, Suleiman and his family, like many Gazans, are spending a relatively calm Ramadan. However, their meal after fasting is limited to rice or canned food distributed by aid services, cooked over a makeshift fire fueled by plastic waste and other debris found among the rubble. Suleiman's family relies entirely on social aid and has no stable source of income.
I had nowhere to go. My house was hit. I lost my car, my daughter died, and my wife's entire family was killed. We were displaced from Jabalia because of Israeli strikes and gunfire, and there is nowhere else to go. Where can we go? We were forcibly displaced. We cannot return to Jabalia. Until now, the city is within the yellow line, and we're not allowed to return. If anyone goes back, they will kill them.
Amid deprivation, soaring prices and life without shelter among the ruins, Ramadan remains overshadowed for more than 2 million Gazans. Despite the ceasefire in place, much of the Gaza Strip still lies in ruins, with no clear timetable for reconstruction, leaving many people without adequate housing and facing food insecurity.
In other news, the Algerian Minister of Defense said Saturday that the death toll from last Thursday's military transport plane crash in the first military region has risen to 4. 2 more crew members died on Friday, bringing the total, while President Abdelmajid Tebboune and the Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense and Chief of Staff Army General Said Chingriha offered condolences, praying for mercy for the martyrs and recovery for the remaining injured. And for more international stories making headlines, let's turn to Salman Asseb and Sofian Kanturi with a news in brief.
Algerian Sonatrach announced the death of 2 workers, 4 others injured in an incident involving a well intervention unit at the Hassi Mas'oud oil field in southern Algeria. According to the company, the incident occurred during a maintenance operation when a fire broke out at the pressure intervention equipment. The emergency team managed to shut down the well and extinguish the blaze, bringing the situation fully under control.
Several Spanish parliaments have renewed their commitment to defending the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination and independence in Western Sahara. The Parliament of Navarra voted by majority in favor of the Navarra Declaration, calling for an end to Morocco's occupation of territory and reaffirming the international legitimacy of Polisario Front as the sole representative of the Sahrawi people. Meanwhile, the Council of Gran Canaria also reiterated its commitment to the cause, describing it as a decolonization issue.
Authorities in Ukraine said Saturday that at least 12 people were killed and more than 10 others injured in a large-scale Russian attack targeting several regions of the country. The mayor of Kharkiv, Ihor Terekov, said 10 people were killed and 10 others wounded after a Russian ballistic missile struck a 5-story Soviet-era residential building.
Algerian Olympic champion Kylian Mbappé won the gold medal on the uneven bars at the second stage of Artistic Gymnastics World Cup held in Baku. The Paris 2024 Olympic Games champion scored 15,233 points, achieving the highest execution difficulty rated at 7 during the final held Saturday. She is also set to compete Sunday in the balance beam final at the same international event.
That's all for tonight. Thank you for watching. Do take care.